Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, R.R. Donnelly, and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm T.K. Kerstetter, CEO of Boardroom Resources, and welcome to part 3 of the FBI visiting Inside America's Boardrooms. And with me is my guest, Randy Coleman, who's the Assistant Director for the FBI Counterintelligence Division. Randy, welcome back for a third time.
Thanks, TK.
We needed 3 times to make sure that we covered this information well. And on this show, we're going to be taking a look at the resources that the FBI has available, how you're working with companies, and just that whole general. So let's start. You have mentioned on the previous 2 shows about the initiatives and the efforts that the FBI is taking to try and educate, to try and create communication. Talk to us about exactly what all is being offered to today's companies.
So that's a great question. And what we've realized in the FBI, and I've mentioned this before, talking about the threat has increased. We've got an increase of 53% in our cases of economic espionage over the last year. It's extremely concerning for us. And what we realize too is hey, the FBI can't go at it alone. The threat is so immense from hostile intelligence services that we need to enlist a partnership for starters with corporate America. And we've done that through an official program at the FBI that we've been running for some time called our Business Alliance. And that is a program that we go out and we explain what the threat is. We actually have 80 strategic partnership coordinators across the country. Every FBI field office, and there's 56 of them, has a counterintelligence program. So it doesn't matter whether you're in Oklahoma City or Little Rock or Sacramento or Washington, there's a counterintelligence component. And buried within that is a strategic partnership coordinator. And their job is to go out and work with corporate America and provide that threat information on a timely basis to be able to help companies understand what they're up against. And as I mentioned before, with the threat, there is nobody that's immune to the economic espionage threat that's being posed against this country right now. And the FBI considers that threat directly related to our national security. We have, this past week, rolled out a national campaign. We put a training video together called The Company Man. It's a real case against a real threat. It's a case that we did about a year ago, where the Chinese were attempting to steal glass insulation, not classified information, but they needed that for a particular industry or sector over in China. And really what we're finding is that hostile intelligence services are, they're not, the countries are not willing to spend money on research and development, and so they steal it. And that's what brings the threat to the shores of the United States. Because as a country, we're the most innovative and creative country in the world. We do more research and development than any country. And as a result of that, we're really the number 1 target when it comes to stealing that research and development. So this particular video is a 36-minute training video. We've published it throughout the United States this past week. We also have links on the FBI.gov website. And we encourage as many people to watch that as possible, and we consider that extremely important as part of our campaign to roll out to educate and create an awareness in the U.S. workforce.
Randy, if a company with these 80 field people, if a company needs someone to come in to talk to their board or something, are they available between their busy schedule to come and speak to a company?
Absolutely. In fact, that is their primary mission, is to go out and work with corporate America and provide that threat information, provide presentations. And you know, that is their function. There's an agent that is dedicated to doing that. And so it's absolutely, if a company wants to have that occur, is to reach out for their local FBI office, and the strategic partnership coordinator will set up a time to come out and do that.
Oh, that would be terrific for a lot of people, just from an education perspective. And I know I get calls all the time as far as speakers and resources that would be helpful to the board, and that certainly would be helpful. So let me take one step further and just talk about the concept of company and government and maybe some private consultants sharing information. It seems to me that sometimes companies have had experiences and they aren't sharing that back, or you know, the government has information. What is available from the network perspective so that all these people are communicating? It seems like that communication has to be one of the best defenses that we have, you know, where everybody knows what's going on.
Yeah, that's an outstanding point, and one that the FBI has attempted to rectify over the last year, is to be able to have proactive discussions with particular sectors, whether it be the pharmaceutical sector, the IT, financial sector, is to be able to put together sector-specific threat information so we can go out and have those type of conversations at annual employee conferences or national conferences being held by those particular sectors. Because as I mentioned earlier, we have this intelligence apparatus now that's really become very mature in the FBI. And what that allows us to do is to actually be more proactive and predictive about what's happening. It was happening too often to hear a company story where they had an employee and the employee abruptly left the company. And then there was an audit done of that particular employee's system after they left, only to find that they're missing 2 terabytes of information, and oh, by the way, the employee is now located overseas. That's a horror story for not only the company, but for the FBI. And so we've tried to transition to where we can get out in front of that, so we can have an effective process working with the company and developing that trust. A lot of the relationship building on the front end is critical to this, because I think sometimes companies think when they want to, if they call the FBI, it's going to make the press or it's going to be a bad news story, but that's not the case at all. There's plenty of examples recently where the FBI has been able to work with a company, be able to protect their trade secret or an intellectual property, identify the bad behavior and those responsible for it, and then bringing them to justice where the company can actually continue to be viable. So that's really the underlying tone of what we're trying to do with this outreach.
You know, one of the things that is probably not an FBI problem, but that is after the breach. You know, okay, you found out that you've been breached. How do you as a management team and as a board handle your reputation, your communication with your customers that may or may not have been affected,
right,
or whatever? And we certainly encourage companies to have what we call a crisis management system, but even those crisis management in the old days didn't take into account all this technology stuff. So it really, that's the kind of stuff that really needs to be updated. We've seen companies have these breaches. You know, some are prepared, others have come under a lot of pressure, including, you know, ultimately their board of directors, you know, being sued for not meeting their due diligence. So the problems are not only on the front end, but then subsequently they become on the back end. That distracts the companies. Next thing you know, they lose some good firepower for, you know, 6 months or whatever. Stock drops a third. Lawsuits happen from the stock dropping. You know, just the snowball just keeps building as it rolls down the hill. So the more that you can get on top of this situation, knowing that you have the right people in place, knowing that this is something that you have built into your agendas, okay, using the resources of the FBI, which I am reasonably sure a lot of people didn't know was available to them. So if this show does anything good, it's certainly going to let people know that that's the case. But we certainly have a challenge here for corporations that isn't going to get any smaller.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, great points. Again, it goes back to the proactive and predictive nature of what a company needs to do. And the FBI, we actually have a lot of experience. When you take a look at the hacks that we've been involved with, when you take a look at the insider cases we've been involved with, we can actually bring lessons learned to a particular company and have those type of discussions with the CEO to be able to help work through these issues because we know they're difficult.
Well, Randy Coleman, Assistant Director of the Counterintelligence Division for the FBI, thank you for joining us over this series. It's been very helpful. We've had some great information. We hope we can have you back again sometime in the future for an update on what the FBI is doing. But again, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, TK.
And that will conclude this edition of Inside America's Boardroom. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take a look at another critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, NASDAQ, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors, Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, R.R. Donnelly, and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.